Okay, so as you know, I do a sort of State of the Union once a quarter, so this is like the half-year State of the Union. Oh, we have got a few more late stragglers. But unlike others, there's no slides to show, and I want this really to be more of a chat, certainly towards the end, because I really need some feedback. It's in 3 parts, so I'm going to talk about the last 6 months, the next 6 months, and the next 3 years. And it's the next 3 years that I really want some feedback on, because I'm in a planning process at the moment with Steve Gatfield and Jonathan about the next 3 years, and by the end of Q3 I want that plan completely locked down. So and I know that people will have a view on the next 3 years, especially when one of the things I'm going to announce will come as a bit of a surprise to people. Hopefully a nice surprise, not an unnice surprise. So in terms of the last 6 months, we all know it's been really tough. There's no getting away from it, no beating about the bush. Group-wise, it was really tough. The next 6 months, however, look very different. In fact, July is going to be a really good month financially, but also the pipeline, we're getting more opportunities, I think, Wanda, than any time in recent times, and some really good ones. So that's all good. And the last 6 months hasn't all been bad, because certain aspects of our business have been fantastic. So our Melbourne studio is right back at the races. After 4 or 5 really tough years, it's probably back at its best, and certainly its pipeline is excellent. And you all know about the Coles opportunity, which is a massive project for that studio. It has been made official now that we've been appointed as their lead strategic consultancy, and that's after many, many years being a second-tier consultancy, not even a strategic consultancy. So the damage that was done 4 or 5 years ago has been, we've put that back, and it's all credit to the team down there that have done a great job. And it's not just Coles, they've also won quite a lot of other things recently too. So, and I think I'm right in saying, Claire, we haven't had any leavers in Melbourne this year, is that right?
No, we haven't. We just had a couple who on fixed terms who we knew that would be moving on.
Yeah.
We're even bringing back Carla, who was an intern from last year and wanting to come back again. So that's
yeah, so the mojo in the studio, the point is the mojo in the studio is really great. From quite a lot of people leaving, we're actually, and we're growing. We've got a new creative director. It's really in a good place. Singapore, likewise. Singapore have just, in fact, Sarah and I are reviewing some work today on a similar opportunity to Coles. We haven't been given the whole piece. We've been given the first piece, which is a strategic review of a company called Dairy Farm. Dairy Farm. Doesn't sound like a big retailer, but it's actually one of the biggest retailers in Asia. They have about 7 different retail formats. And we've been given the job of looking at their strategic home brand piece. But also, I think, the work that they've been doing with Heineken, we're actually starting to work on Tiger Beer, which is obviously Heineken's marquee brand in the region, and the briefs are coming thick and fast. So, and they've already been with Greg and Mark to see Heineken in Holland about Tiger. So that would be a fantastic win if we can really lock that down. So that's good, and also Framework Creative. They've just injected a new mojo into the London studio, and I think I'm right in saying that their revenues for the half year with Elmwood are the same as the revenues they had for the whole year as an independent last year. So they're growing really well. They've just been shortlisted for a Beamer Award, so it's starting to get traction in digital awards, which is fantastic. So the UK business, okay, numbers aside and P&G loss aside, there's some great work being done. I think the work we've done for Summersby is sensational. And that I say that I picked that one out because it's on the back of that brand being a challenge for several of our predecessor agencies and not locking it down for Carlsberg. So for us to actually lock that down, I know it's the talk of Carlsberg internally at the moment as being a showcase project, so that's fantastic. But also, you know, in the London studios, GSK continues to grow and develop. Heineken is going great. Mars, which was a potential problem and we nearly lost the business, it's completely turned around. And we have Steve Gatfield to thank for his intervention on that. But one thing is making the intervention, and the team have to deliver, and the team are delivering. And then there's those lovely projects like Lloyd Webber Theatres. So, you know, there's a lot of good stuff happening, and the pipeline, as I say, for the next 6 months is good. But it doesn't mean to say we've won it. You know, it will require a lot of diligence to bring that home. And then in America, you know, they've had their challenges too. Some of it brought about by losing P&G, but the opportunities there are good. They've just landed the Sobeys work, largely on the back of the work we did for Loblaws here. Our client from Loblaw moved to Sobeys, and that's another big brand renewal. They're getting back at the races with Kimberly-Clark, and there are other opportunities coming through as well. I think Tums is one that somebody mentioned to me. So, you know, there are a number of, and also we've got a number of new inquiries. I think we've got CVX, which is CVS, which is their version of Boots over here, which is a big opportunity. So, you know, the opportunities are in front of us. It's for us to convert and make happen.
And a lot of that is...
Sorry, Tim?
I just want to build on that for Brit, you said Tom's opportunity was on the back of the Horlicks wing, which was there at the studio.
Yeah.
So lots of nutritions out of the GSK brand portfolio.
Yeah, you know, there are so many opportunities. Horlicks is a great one, and, you know, so if I do forget any in this ramble, it's because there are so many. And also, of course, after a lot of trying and a lot of hard work, we've got 2 creative directors, one for Leeds, one for London, and we've also got Meg, who started in New York. So, you know, the future, the next 6 months could be, if we deliver of our very best and we're on our A game, could be a great 6 months. You know, that sort of was the year that was. And, you know, it is in context with a very, very challenging industry that is in complete transformation. So I've been talking about this now probably for 2 years, that our industry is changing. You've all seen and heard what's going on with WPP. You know, the fallout from Superunion, we know we're taking on people from Superunion. We've got a number of people starting in our London studio from that complete fallout. But equally today, well actually yesterday, I saw Publicis' results, which were a shock to the market because they were even worse than expected. Revenues 9% down. And this is the 3rd largest Marcoms group in the world. And so 9% off their revenues is a big, big number. Not only are we're seeing lots of talent being displaced. I was talking to a couple of our freelancers in London, or rather they were talking to me. Actually, I didn't go and solicit their response. John Cabale, who some of you will know used to work for us, is now freelance. He came up to me and he said, I can't believe the transformation in Elmwood. It feels really good down in London. And he said, that's in stark contrast to wherever I've worked in the market in London. He said, people are being displaced everywhere. Now, that doesn't mean to say that there aren't 1 or 2 studios doing well at the moment. There always will be, but the majority are having a very difficult time. And in fact, I have had 2 chief executives of studios call me in the last 3 weeks wanting a job. 2 chief execs. And these are studios of a good reputation. They are not some studio that you've never heard of before. So, you know, that's sort of the contrast. We have to think about where we are versus the market, and versus the market, we're actually in a very good place. And the one reason why we are in a very good place is, A, we've got a good pipeline going forward, but the one thing that I've always done is, not always done, but in the main, the vast majority of my 25, 26 years of ownership of Elmwood, I reckon at least 20 of them, we've left all the money in the business. Occasionally I've paid myself a dividend, but the vast majority of the time, the money has stayed in the business, which means that today we have a fairly significant cash pile. The last time I asked Debbie, maybe 2 weeks ago, we had £2 million of cash in the business. So, what that does is it gives you freedom to make the right long-term decisions and not have to think and worry about today. And there are a lot of wounded beasts, as one of my peers called them, in the market at the moment. And wounded beasts in our industry are dangerous because they are scrabbling around for work. And that's what we've got to be aware of. Equally, I think those, and I can probably count them on one hand, the number of agencies that I think are doing okay at the moment. The danger with those guys is that they're probably a little bit complacent, and so actually they should be easy targets for us. And one of them in particular, we're doing actually quite well against. So, if that's the last 6 months and the next 6 months, what about the next 3 years? And you all know that the definition of insanity is to carry on doing the same thing and expect a different result. And if we just carry on regardless, we'll get the same results, which is feast and famine. That means that we will be trying to win, and keep our big clients. We'll lose one, we'll gain one, and the last 4 years show that our revenues have been flat. And our revenues have been flat in a market with 1% inflation. And 1% inflation, when you're not driving up your sales line, means that there is less and less room for better rewards in terms of salary rises, bonuses, whatever it might be. And so something has to change, because the trajectory of doing the same thing is really clear. I mentioned to a few of you the other day that I had lunch with Ian Thompson the other day, a local competitor here in Leeds. He is leaving the business in August. And he didn't give me the absolute details, but I read between the lines that there is no growth for his business, and he just wants to get out, and he actually almost said that he was being forced out of his own business. Now he owns the property, so he'll be all right, be able to charge his team rent. But that just shows that a business, probably the only other local business in Leeds that's got a good creative reputation, is basically changing where the founder is leaving the business. So the next 3 years, I think we have to do 3 things, and the 3 things are: number one, we have to become more agile. We've talked about agility and Elmwood Express, Elmwood Agile, and we've never sort of really worked out what that is. A few weeks ago, Sarah and I were introduced to a company called Agency Agile, and they're based in Los Angeles, and we had dinner with the owner about 2 weeks ago, along with Sue in London and Craig, because Andy couldn't come along, just to see what they were like. And we are hoping to engage them. What they do is they specialise in taking techniques from digital businesses, agile techniques, and repurposing them for design and advertising businesses. And you can go on their website, they're called Agency Agile, just Google Agency Agile Los Angeles, and you'll be able to read all about them. And their reviews, and they came highly recommended to us. The person that recommended them said that they'd engaged them in their business, and it completely transformed the way they worked. what was really interesting when we spoke to them is that a lot of their techniques are not dissimilar to the techniques that we have. But what was really inspiring to me is that they basically gave techniques that got the bosses out of the way and empowered and enabled from the bottom up. So it was a growing opportunity and a talent growth opportunity to allow the leaders in the business to step aside and actually do two things. One, spend more time mentoring and growing people, and also spending more time going out and rainmaking, bringing in the next wave of business. So I'm actually quite excited about them as a business. We just need to get the ELT to sign off their budgets. It's not massively expensive, and it's an online learning tool, so it's something that you'll get ongoing. It's not like something where they come in and give you a load of wisdom and then go away, and after 6 months you've forgotten it. This is an ongoing way of changing the way we work. So that, I hope, will help us be more agile, because we can't work any harder. Most people work ridiculous hours anyway and are under a lot of stress to deliver quickly, so we have to find a slightly different way to do it. The second thing of the three that I think we need to do is we have to develop new offers. If there's one thing my association with working with And Digital has taught me, it is that the future is digital. No shit, Sherlock. And they have gone from nothing in 4 years to be a £30 million business and employing 250 people. And they're hiring like 50 people a year. So, what's also interesting about being involved in that business is that their business development techniques are actually very old school Elmwood. It's all about relationship building and having lots of opportunities to collide into clients. That's what we used to do many, many years ago. You know, I used to do it sort of every week. And somehow, maybe my bandwidth's got taken up, other leaders in our business have got taken up, but maybe therefore the agency agile model will free our time up to do more client collision and actually get back to that real relationship building. So we are actively on the hunt for other digital businesses. We've got a brief out with an organisation in Singapore to find us another business to buy, and a lot of them are digital that are coming back to us. So I'm going out to Singapore in September to have a look at some of these companies with a view to hopefully adding somebody to the portfolio to give us a bit more bandwidth, because Jill and her team have no bandwidth. God knows how they actually do the work they do, because there's only 7 or 8 of them, and you know they're working on really big stuff. And then finally, therefore, the third aspect is talent. So the only thing we have to sell is our expertise, our talent. And there are 2 aspects to this. One is retention of talent, and the other is training of talent. It's a frustrating and sad industry statistic that the average churn, the number of people leaving a business in a year, is about 20%. So 20% of the talent that we have leaves us each year. And that's not just an Elmwood thing, that's every company thing. In recruitment fees last year, 2017, we spent nearly £250,000 just on recruitment agencies hiring talent. £250,000. Now, on top of that, you've got the time it takes, and also you've got the knowledge loss and the relationship loss that when it goes out the door. So it's not just the money, it's actually the drain of resource and the time it takes. So if we could halve that, we'll never not have people leaving, and some people should leave. It's the right time for them. You know, career growth isn't all about staying at Elmwood. But if you halved that, that money would go straight on the bottom line and more, because we'd be more productive, because we'd be doing less interviews and so on. So if you haven't done your PDR process yet, whether you are a line manager giving it, or you're somebody waiting to be given, please do it. Because the thing that we need is we need to get your feedback on what learning and development you need. And I'm going to be sending some notes from this talk just as a recap, because the third thing I'm going to talk about, which is the most significant, I know there'll be lots of thoughts about. But in the notes there's a map which Debbie gave to me. So as part of my planning, I actually spent some time looking at the top trumps cards and looking at everybody's faces, to see who I didn't know, because there actually are some people in London in particular that I don't know, probably some people in New York because we've had some new hires there, and also in the other overseas studios. But really I was looking to see, who do I think is part of the next generation, intuitively, of leaders in our business? And who is 50% doing an amazing job and maybe 50% not doing an amazing job? And why? You know, is it because they've got a talent gap? Is it because they're in the wrong job? And what do I do to make everybody 100% amazing? And I was talking to Sarah and Debbie about this, and Debbie said, I want to show you this map. And it's a map which plots on one level, on a vertical axis, it plots your potential, so low potential to high potential, and then on a horizontal axis it plots your ability and your skill and how well you're doing. So doing a crap job to doing a great job. So bottom left hand corner, crap job and no potential. Fortunately I couldn't find anybody who was in that box. But it was interesting that I could find lots of people who got more potential than I mapped them out to be. But there were also some people who were doing an amazing job, but actually probably not got much potential. And you might think that that's a problem. Well, actually it's not, because not everybody wants to be the boss, wants to be the chairman or the chief executive. Thank God, because that means that I've only got 4 or 5 people to fend off, maybe 10 or 20. But not everybody wants to go to the very top of an organisation. Some people actually just want to do an amazing job at whatever it is they're doing, and are very happy with that. And I'm happy with that. But where there is potential and people want to grow, I want to find ways through our PDR process to make sure that people get the right mentorship and training to get there. So I did a little exercise, and I'd like you to do the same exercise when you get the map, is I'd like you to plot on the map where you think you are. And then I'd like you to plot on the map where you think either I or your line manager think you are. Just to see if there's a difference in paradigm and perception, and use that as part of your conversation in your PDR to say, well, I bet you think I'm here and I probably haven't got potential, or maybe you think I'm here and I think I'm there, so let's discuss that little paradigm gap. It's not to do anything else other than to help you in your conversations to get the career path and development that you need. Does that make sense? Okay? Okay, so talent is obviously, without talent we are completely sunk. The third thing is talent retention. So how, in a market where, you know, everybody wants more rewards, you know, I've told you this many times, I've given myself one rise in about 10 years because the business can't afford to pay me anymore, even if I think I'm worth any more. And with 1% inflation and a declining market and flat revenues, to be able to give people lots of rewards, it's very difficult. And also the bandwidth of the leadership team is ever tighter. So if I could just spend all of my time doing business development and networking, then I would. That's what I would spend my time on. Because selling and doing business development is the thing that I'm best at. But I can't, because there are so many other things, you know, finding a business in Singapore, helping people when they've got issues, whatever it might be, looking at potential acquisitions. So there are lots of things that are on my plate that stop me doing the things that I really should be doing, perhaps. And so I was thinking back to the early days of my career, and I joined Elmwood when I was 21, and most of you know the story. I was the MD when I was 24. And when I first joined, the first day I walked into Elmwood, my job was to look after some existing clients, and you sort of call them clients. They were companies you'd never heard of, single man businesses working out of their bedroom. It was just a jobbing studio. And I realised very quickly that if I didn't go on the road, even at 21, and find some business to bring in, I'd be out of a job. It was that simple. So I learned through the School of Hard Knocks, and I had a meeting with a number of the account directors and some of the design team here earlier in the week, and it's clear that those skills that I picked up early on have never really been passed on. And so I want to make sure that everybody feels part of the growth of the business and responsible for bringing in work and responsible for really giving of their best when they're doing the work. The reason you get more work is you get more work by doing amazing creativity. It's that simple. So how do we create a business where everybody's passionate to learn, to grow and give of their best and work collegiately? Because actually, even though it's not your remit, even though it's not the thing that you should be doing, because it's not your responsibility, you step in because you can see people need help. One of the best acts that's ever happened in Elmwood in recent years is when Sarah handed the SSE account to London, because Deborah was based in London, and even though it affected Sarah and Leeds revenues, it was the right thing to do. And I want that to happen all the time. I want people to reach out and help other studios. And so the only way we'll do that, in my view, is that if everybody is an owner in the business. And okay, we have the trust fund, but it's a small percentage. I think the trust owns about 6% of the business. We have been approached to be acquired, I don't know, I've lost count, 20 times, 30 times over the last 10 years. I've had one approach in the last month where somebody's knocked on the door and said, I want to buy Elmwood. We had 3 or 4 approaches last year. About 18 months ago, we were approached, and they did their due diligence. I always let people do their due diligence because it's a good, I think it's a rehearsal for one day when it happens for real. And so it helps your negotiation skills if you've been through it before. Sounds quite naughty to do that, but that's the nature of the game. And 18 months or so ago, we were offered £10 million for the business, of which I was going to get paid in cash my percentage up front, which was a great deal for me. But I turned the offer down, and again, if I'm repeating myself from previous talks, then forgive me, but I've always said that I would only ever sell Elmwood if it ticked 3 boxes. Number 1 box, it's got to be right for me, because after 36 years in the business and having put my house on the line and all of those things, I'd be a fool not to do it right for me. But then there are lots of people who've been here 10 years, 20 years, Martin, is it nearly 30 years? 30 years. It would be, I couldn't look myself in the face if I suddenly sold everybody down the river and got my wad and walked off. I've actually seen what's happened to some of my peers who've done that, and the teams that they've left behind have gone, well, great, we've worked really hard and you just walked off and left us in it, or sold us to a company that we don't want to be part of. So it has to be right for all colleagues. And thirdly, it has to be right for the owner of the new business, because if it's not right for the owner of the new business, then life after would be also miserable. So if it doesn't tick those 3 boxes, and it never has ticked those 3 boxes, then we wouldn't do it. But one day the business will transition. It might not be sold, it might be a management buyout, it might be a merger, it might be a flotation on the AIM stock market. But what I've decided to do to try and get everybody feeling there's some skin in the game is that I am capping my value. So what that means is if the business is still worth 10 million, it might not be, it might be worth 9, it might be worth 8, who knows, there's not a firm offer on the table at the moment. But let's say it's worth 10 million. I actually own 80% of the business today, but then there are a number of people here who have share options. So Andy and Sarah and a number of others, Nulty in New York, have some share options. So when I'm fully diluted, I'm down to 56%. So I've already given away 30% of the business to a number of people here, as well as given shares away to create the trust fund. There are actually only 3 shareholders in Elmwood proper. There's me, Greg, and Simon Priest has a small amount. The rest we've given away. So I am now going to give away all of my growth. So beyond, well, the 50, if I've got 56, I'm going to keep 6%. But anything be above £10 million that we get for this business, all of my growth, that 50%, I'm going to give to everybody in the business. So if we could get this business to 20 million in 3 years' time, if, and it is a big if, there's a £5 million pot of money there to be distributed amongst the business. So how that works, who gets what, I'm working through. I've already spoken to lawyers and Debbie's spoken to our accountants to see how that might work. But it doesn't take much arithmetic to work out 5 million divided by 120 people as it is today, might be 150 people by the time we get there, still means a fairly significant cash pile. Now, that could be a down payment on a mortgage, it could be paying school fees, it could be a whole host. So it's not out of anybody else's future growth, it's just out of my growth. But I'm basically capping my value at that 10 million. And everything else will go to everybody else. I need to work through how that works because, you know, if you've been here 30 years, you probably deserve a bit more than somebody who's been here 12 months. If you've made a fundamental difference to the business because you're in a leadership role, you probably deserve a bit more than somebody who hasn't got that power. But everybody will get something significant if we get to that position. Now, I've been asked all sorts of, when I announced this originally, already I've had a number of emails because I did this in London yesterday. Wanda very quickly wrote a Jonathan retirement note. I am not retiring. It was a very good reactive PR note, but I'm not retiring. And I use the word transition carefully. I've got a goal in 3 years' time when I hit 60. I know everybody thinks I'm 40, but I'll be 60 in 3 years' time. I want that opportunity to build a business that can transition without me. I might choose to walk off into the sunset, and if we haven't got a buyer, if the business is in rude health and doesn't need me, then maybe the business could buy my shares lock, stock and barrel out of future profits over a few years. And then in which case, everybody owns all of the business, not just the future growth. It could be that we have a trade sale, it could be a merger, it could be a number of things. But the real message here is that I want everybody to have real skin in the game where they can earn a decent pot of cash. Now, of course, that may never come to pass. You know, I thought I might transition when I was 50, and we've had lots of offers on the door, and it's never come to pass. On a couple of occasions, I've even dared myself to get a Ferrari brochure and think, this is time it's going to happen. And I tell you what, the disappointment when you have to put it back in the drawer and think, no, that's gone away. So what I don't want anybody to do is start thinking, oh, well, let me do the maths. Well, I reckon I'm there. Maybe that means X for me. Don't start doing that. Because
don't buy your Ferraris yet.
No. You know, but the truth is that it's there to be had. You know, a number of people have said to me, "Well, that's very generous of you, Jonathan. it's not generous of me at all, you know, because for me to get my bit, then we've got to have a growth trajectory where everybody thinks, well, there's skin in the game for me. So if you help that growth, then you also help me get my transition. And like I say, that is probably not retirement. I don't really want to walk away in 3 years' time. I would like to stay involved, even if it's part-time. It may well be full-time, because if the stress of worrying about everybody's mortgages and looking at some red bracketed numbers occasionally, far too occasionally, I'd like to get that away from me, because, you know, I'm not getting any younger. So that's the plan. Over the next 3 months, I need to work out what a 20 million business looks like. How are we going to get there? But most importantly, the truth is, I can't work any harder either. You know, every single day of every single week, I am either working very late at night or very early in the morning, and quite often both. You know, people might see me roll in this morning at 9:30 as I did, but my day started way before that, because I'm talking to Singapore, or I'm talking to Australia, or I'm just getting my head around a load of emails before I come in. And likewise, tonight I'll be doing a few things, because before I go on holiday there are a few things I haven't done and need to do. And Holly, who sees my emails, will know the times that some of those emails come in and I respond to them. So I can't work any harder. I need the business to work smarter. And so the meeting we had here in Leeds the other day, it was great that immediately afterwards I got 2 or 3 people drop me a note saying, I'm really excited about this. I really want to help with business development. I see it as part of my growth. You know, Daisy was one of those. Joe sent me a lovely note about, you know, clients we could contact. Wanda did. A number of you did. And I thought, that's really heartening that everybody wants to be part of this growth story. And so, first week I'm back from holiday, I've already emailed Sue in London, so I'd like to do the same thing and talk to people about selling and how you become salespeople and make it enjoyable. The thing that will get us there is working together and making it enjoyable. And I think, you know, things like Framework joining the business have added a zip to that studio, and we want to do that here too. So on that point, that's the plan. Have a think about what you would like to see Almond look like in the next 3 years, and give me any thoughts and ideas you might have. You know, we're considering a European studio because of Brexit. You know, what might happen. I think Brexit's going to be very difficult for our industry, and certainly with all of our clients, with Heineken and Carlsberg and GSK all being in mainland Europe, the trading barriers will be more difficult. So having a hub in Holland, in Amsterdam or in Copenhagen might be a good idea. I've already been to Holland to see a couple of design businesses and have conversations with them. So this is not just, you know, me saying some stuff. I've actually been behind the scenes doing that. So, you know, there are lots of thoughts. And also, you know, if you spot any little interesting, exciting digital businesses that you think, oh, wish we had that in-house, tell me about it, because it could be. We could just go and try and buy some of these businesses. So have a think about everything that I've said, because this is a different ball game going forward. This will actually be partly your business. You will have skin in the game, and if we make it happen in 3 years' time, 4 years' time, whenever that period is, there could be a windfall, and it could be a significant one. So that's all I have to say as a sort of half-year update. Are there any questions? If it was like London yesterday, everybody says nothing for about the first 30 seconds, and then one hand goes up, and then all of a sudden another hand goes up, and then another hand goes up, all about the ownership thing mainly. But any questions? Deja vu. Okay, well if there aren't, I'm going to send you the notes.
Did you have a question?
It wasn't so much about it was how the potential map is worked out. How do you gauge where someone sit, how all of us sit on that map?
So it's a good question. So you need to see the map.
Okay.
because it gives you, there are 9 little boxes on the map that sort of say this is what this means. So if you are in the top quartile, loads of potential and loads of performance, actually there's nobody in that. You know, if you think that you've no potential left or no performance left, then you're probably an unbelievable superstar or amazingly arrogant. But actually, no, I am in that top box. No, but seriously, you know, it's not a quantifiable thing. It's an intuitive thing. So, you know, you have to sort of think, well, where, you know, what could I learn? And think about it as a sort of 3-year horizon. You know, if my potential to be a creative director in your case, you know, what's that horizon would I think, what's this, you know, you have the potential to be a creative director. Lots of people here have the potential to be a creative director. So what are the gaps in your current learning? You know, it might be sales techniques, because the best creative directors are amazing in front of clients. It might be technical skills, it might be what, I don't know what they are, but you will know what they are, and you'll know what you could learn in 12 months and what you might take you 3 or 5 years to get to. But also have a look at, you know, the work that you've done, you know, and think about, well, how many awards have I won? How many do I think I could have won if I'd have had a better brief or worked in a better team, or actually just had my time again to do that piece of work? So you'll be able to roughly gauge where you think you are. It's not a science. It is an art, and it's not something to beat anybody over the head with. It's really for your line managers as a tool to just go, okay, well, you think you're there. Actually, I agree. I think you are there. So where do we want to be in the next 3 years, and how can we help you get there? Because I don't want a 20% churn in this business. You know, one of the things I did do when I went through that map is there was nobody, not one single person, that I thought, I want you to leave. Not one. There were lots of people who I thought, yeah, we can help them, they've got much more potential, or they're not quite working to their best, their optimum at the moment. And where is that? And that was some of the leadership team. In fact, everybody on the leadership team, it helped me think, maybe they could be better at this, or maybe they need a bit of help with that. So this isn't like, you know, the further down the ladder. In actual fact, you know, it's more difficult the higher up you get, because, you know, if you've been doing the job for 20 years or longer, then changing and developing becomes harder. It's actually a lot easier down below. So, yeah, it was a map I did for everybody, and it helped me. It's helped me in my appraisals, the ones I've done with the line managers I've seen so far. And it's not to say, actually, that I want somebody to change. What I'll probably want to do is take away the stuff that they're not very good at, because if you're up there already, the things that they're amazing at, they are really amazing at, and actually that's all I want them to do. And I don't want them to do all this stuff that they're not so good at. Let's get somebody else to do that. Okay, good question. Any others? No? Yeah, Tim?
2 quick ones.
Yeah.
When does the sharing start?
Yeah.
And does that make us kind of like John Lewis?
It does. So the sharings, it's as of now, because what has come out of my mouth I can't take back. What the mechanism for that is, that's what I've got to work through. So somebody said, oh, does that mean we get actual shares, and can we take them with us if we leave? The answer to that is no. If anybody leaves, that just like the option holders, if they leave, they lapse and they go back into the pot. It will probably be a trust fund, just like the current trust. But what I think is really important is that over the 3-year plan, we put milestones in place to see if we're on track. Because if people can't feel it and can't touch it and think there is a finish line in sight, it might be meaningless. And so, you know, that's part of the, you know, there are a lot, you know, when I originally thought about this and decided, shit, that's what I'm going to do, I mentioned it to a few people, and the few people I mentioned it to said, yeah, I think that's a really good idea, that'd be really motivating. The two people that said don't announce it were Steve Gatfield and Jonathan Wackett. And they said, don't announce it until you've absolutely nailed it on. And I said, do you know, I am very deferential to their judgment, because I hold them in such high esteem and regard. But I thought, no, you know, I sort of know the mood music of the business that I work in, and I think people have known me long enough that I try and do what I say I'm going to do, and I certainly don't say things that I don't try and deliver on. You know, I think apart from my father, who was the only person who did do 30 miles an hour and a 30 mile an hour limit, I am actually the most honest person I know. So I will try and make this happen. But the mechanisms, I think, are sort of getting into the detail. All you need to know is, beyond 10 million, if we ever sell it, that 50% of my holding will go to the business. How I work out who gets what, and I need to work that through. All I know is it'll be fair. But it starts now. If somebody knocked on the door tomorrow and said, here's 15 million for Elmwood, then 2.5 million would be distributed. If we decided that was the right thing to do, if it was the right buyer, you know, we might get somebody knock on our door and offer 20 million, and then we turn it down because actually it would be a death knell for the business. You get a quick payday, but actually you'd hate it. And there would be a lock-in. Any time you sell a business, half of it will be an earn-out over the following 3 years. So you get 50% up front, day one, and then you'd get the rest over a 2 or 3 year period. So, you know, and to get the rest, you'd want to get the rest, you'd want to be able to enjoy that 3 years. You wouldn't want to, which is the reason I've never sold, because I could see that the next 3 years, whilst in the last deal, my 50%, my 100% was all on day one. It was an amazing deal for me. But so I could be sitting in the Mediterranean now with a Ferrari in the Mediterranean and one in Ripon, and probably one in North Berwick. And but I didn't, because it was the wrong thing to do. And it's a blessing and a curse, but I've never been motivated by money. It's a blessing that I'm not motivated. It doesn't turn me on, you know, that's why I don't give myself pay rises or dividends that often. But it's also a curse because it also makes me soft. And actually I think Elmwood it's been part of the great thing about our culture, but it's also been an Achilles heel at times too. But anyway, it starts now.
So it sounds like it's like an extension of what's happening already, just that shift.
Exactly, it's exactly
not
that.
Anybody in any control of the business, not ultimately on the ELT.
No, and there are no voting rights attached to it. The only voting rights are actually in the ordinary shares. Even the share option holders don't get a vote. But in all the years I've ever been here, we've never used shareholding to vote through anything. Never. In fact, quite the opposite. You know, the number of times I've allowed decisions to be made that I don't agree with, I have never ever once used shareholding to railroad a decision. I think that's true, isn't it?
Yeah,
You know, never once.
Perfectly true. Yeah. But,
You know, if it came to that, we'd all be some.
yeah.
You know.
But what it does do, Tim, is it gives everyone the motivation to make this business as successful as it possibly can by us all working together, both within the studio and across studios, so that shareholding is as valuable as it possibly can be.
And I think, you know, it would be enough to put a down payment on a mortgage. You know, it'd be, you know, 5 million quid, if it got to 20 million, divided by 120, is a significant sum of money. And for some, it'd be more, but even for, you know, people on the base level, it'd still be 25 grand.
Or if it was 30 million, it'd be even more.
Exactly, but there might be more people it's divided by, but yes, it would. So the thing I think is that you know, I go home every single night. I mean, I think probably people look at me and think, oh, you know, Jonathan's fairly level and doesn't worry too much. I worry every single night when I go home. I worry about people's jobs. I worry that, you know, people are happy. And I'd like everybody else to worry a little bit. And I'm sure you do all worry a little bit. But I'd like to get to the point of worry where you do something about it. So if you see somebody who's not pulling their weight and you're working all the hours God sends, you go, come on guys, you know, we're all working together here to make a difference. Because I know that what happens is that if you're pulling up trees every single day and you see 1, 2, 3 people not doing the same, you go, well, why should I? You know, why should I? Now, fortunately, we don't have many people like that, but I want to make sure that we've got a culture where everybody is all for one and one for all, because there's always something to go for. So I am seeing this. We're already a member of the employee ownership organisation, because through the trust we are. I'm seeing this more as a cooperative than a limited company or a limited liability partnership, so a bit like a lawyer or an accountancy practice. So, you know, it is an opportunity for people to get some skin in the game of significance without having the risk of doing what I did and remortgaging my house when I was in my late 20s. But anyway, still very young, to remortgage my house and take real risk. This is actually the opportunity for you to have skin in the game without the risk, and to be part of something that will be different in the market. You know, the feedback I've had from London already was very good. I'm sure there are some people that still don't understand it, but the follow-up notes I had from yesterday were really positive. Any other questions? No? Well, please feel free to email me and I'll respond, and I will send some follow-up notes. Once you've read the follow-up notes, if there are any questions, let me know and I'll try and respond. In the meantime, thanks for listening. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you all in 2 weeks' time.